A while ago I encouraged you guys to go out and build a system that was similar to maybe one that you used growing up that had an impact on you for the purposes of vintage and retro gaming. While building fantasy/dream machines is definitely a lot of fun, in my opinion they still leave a little bit to be desired, and that's the fact that you don't really quite have a memory of these systems. You don't quite have a connection to them. Sure, it was something that you wanted, but it wasn't quite what you got. You couldn't afford it, or maybe it wasn't available in your country. And so that's where the fun of these old PCs are. It's re-experiencing what it was like to use them and really re-appreciating the entertainment that they gave you. Yes, they probably couldn't run games at like crazy high settings with blazing fast speed, but they still ran the games well enough for you to be able to play with decent enough settings. Well, at least I hope. Some of you in the comments had some very interesting setups at the time that I can't imagine would have been that enjoyable to use, but still, you guys made the best of it, and that's awesome. That was the whole point. These days we're spoiled with high resolutions and crazy fast frame rates, but at this time, if you got 30 FPS at like 1024 by 768, that was awesome. That was great. But no matter how hard that PC tried, there came a time when it was time to bring it to the back of the shed and give it the old Yeller treatment. Yes, there was a time when your old friend had to be decommissioned because it just wasn't cutting it anymore. I'm sure you all can remember that first real PC that you got. I'm talking about the one that was a true gaming PC, or maybe even just a PC that was full of modern brand new components that felt like a massive upgrade compared to this thing that you'd been using for so long. Everybody's first gaming PC or real PC probably has a very unique story to it, and I'm here to tell you mine today. The year was 2010. I had two computers. An Athlon XP 2800 Plus that my uncle had graciously given to me several years after it became obsolete, and I had a Toshiba Satellite A100 laptop with a Celeron processor that was based off the Core Duo sort of era of architectures, right before Core 2 Duo. While the Athlon XP was okay for gaming with its GeForce FX 5700 LE, the integrated graphics in the Toshiba laptop were terrible. There was basically no gaming happening. Okay, that's not entirely true. Gaming did happen on this system. But, again, games struggled to run, and there was no way I was running anything new. And more importantly, by this point, the Athlon XP desktop had started to show its true colors. That little GeForce FX 5700 LE was having serious problems and constantly crashing. Not to mention, it was kind of an amalgamation of random parts I had picked up and that my uncle had. It really wasn't stable at all. It was a very, very unstable and slow computer. Being an adult, I can basically pinpoint exactly what happened and why it didn't run so well. But at the time, I was just a dumb kid, and I don't know why computer no work. I angry. So from the start of 2010, I had made it a point to tell my parents, I want a gaming computer, and I want it now. If not, I want it for Christmas. Okay, actually, I didn't say I want it now. I said I wanted it for Christmas. I'm not that bold. Now, my parents were not happy with the idea of this. Matter of fact, they were very against it at first. I tried to come up with several BS excuses that were kind of actually legitimate, the main one being, I don't have a stable computer, but then they would just point to my laptop and I would tell them, well, I can't game on that, it's a laptop, man. But either way, after spending most of the year constantly hounding them that, hey, just saying for Christmas, I want a gaming computer, I want a new gaming computer, they were adamant on not giving me one, and the situation really started to look grim. I had been a particularly bad boy that year, spending most of my time mucking around with ancient computers instead of doing my homework, and especially my math homework. And because of this, my parents were pretty upset with me, having taken away several of my existing electronics so I don't get distracted. With their consistent refusal to get me a new computer, let alone a gaming computer, really, I had just given up at that point. And little did I know, this was all going perfectly according to my plan for my parents. So you can probably imagine my shock on Christmas Day of 2010 when after we had all finished opening our presents, my dad brought this last present out for me to open.
Why are you so scared? What's wrong with you?
Oh, this thing is just a beautiful machine. Oh, it's got PS2. But Mark was saying he wanted an Alienware for gaming. I said you might as well get a custom-built computer for gaming.
Alienware is like $4,000.
I know, and you might as well get a custom-built computer.
It's okay, dog.
He's like scared.
He's not excited. He's terrified.
He's terrified because you're going crazy.
But I got a new computer. What can you say?
Very much.
4 gigabytes of RAM.
4 gigabytes of RAM. My God, Thomas.
This is now the best computer of the house.
Yes, that's right. My parents went and got me a gaming computer. Holy crap. They had done such a good job trolling me and making me believe that I was not getting this. Yet here it was. As it would turn out, my mom gave my dad a little bit of money and said, hey, go nuts. Buy him whatever it is this thing he wants. At that time, my dad had just finally found some form of stable employment after being between jobs in a seemingly dying field for many years. So really, between what my mom could pitch in and what my dad could pitch in, this is all they could afford. And yet, it was awesome. This computer was unlike anything I'd ever seen in my life before. And you know what? Who better to tell you about the specs of this system than 12-year-old me? Take it away, 12-year-old me.
We're just having a look on the inside of my brand new computer and I'm pretty impressed. This is a pretty pimped out computer. We have an Intel, what does it say on the case? I got this case with drivers and antivirus and everything. What's it? It is a Intel, you know what? I'm not too sure.
Yep, awesome, cool. Thanks,
it's like
thanks for letting us know, little guy. He has no idea what he's talking about. We'll quickly go over the specs, quickly go over how I got this, because, spoiler alert, this isn't the PC that was given to me, though I wish it was. And then I'll stop wasting your time, and we'll go straight to the games. Though, if you want that, then there's chapters below. You can click on the gaming one, you can start seeing how games run on this thing. In terms of a CPU, we have an i3-540. The RAM is just 4 gigabytes of bog standard DDR1333 running in dual channel. Driving my games with high settings and blazing fast frames is none other than the Zotac GTS 450 1GB GDDR5. The hard drive, again, bog standard Seagate Barracuda 500 gigabyte SATA drive. I'd never even seen this kind of connector before until I looked into this PC. Our power supply is some sort of janky Orion power supply. They do be having a fancy gold-plated fan cover though. Random optical drive. Driving this whole thing is a BioStar H55 HD motherboard. So how exactly did I get a hold of this? Well, let me try and sum up the story. This PC was actually a pre-built, made by a Canadian computer retailer called PC Cyber. And here to tell you briefly about PC Cyber is me from like last month. PC Cyber was a Canadian tech retailer founded in 1998 based out of Ottawa, Ontario. They would later seemingly open 2 locations in Montreal, but otherwise they were strictly located throughout the Ottawa area. Other than that, I couldn't really find anything else on them. Now, obviously they haven't existed in over 10 years now, but for the longest time, they were the go-to place for people of Ottawa to get PC parts. Awesome. Thanks, dude. Get well, by the way. You sound a little sick. Anyways, as it would turn out, I have a coworker who I'm very close with, who just so happened to buy his own gaming PC at the same time that my dad bought my gaming PC from the exact same PC Cyber. The only difference is my coworker had a little bit more money to spend, and so he ended up getting an i5 and a Radeon HD 5770. Somewhat appropriately, just last year, at the very end of December, right after Christmas, my coworker said, hey, I know you wanted this computer for a while, I'm replacing it with a different one, it's all yours. And so I happily went and scooped it up. All it needed to become my PC again was this Zotac GTS 450, which finding this specific version, incredibly difficult. I don't know why. I have not seen any on eBay, and I've looked on and off for years. This one actually had to come from Japan. I had to downgrade the CPU, which was awesome, super cheap, $2 for this Core i3-540. The optical drive was just something that I pulled out of some sort of random computer, and it just so happened to be the exact same one that I had. And of course, I had to get the infamous case stickers. Especially that Zotac one, that was kind of expensive. This one, not so much. But with those downgrades and modifications done, this is the PC that I have. Same everything. Alright, it's benchmarking time. Now I need to note 2 things. Thing number 1, I'm playing both old versions and modern versions of the games that I used to play. Ideally, I would like to do the modern version of every game, but unfortunately, updates have gone far enough that some of these games don't even run on Windows 7 anymore. And the other thing is, at the time that I had this PC, I had a little bit of a higher def monitor than the one I have right now. So we will be doing our tests at 1280 by 1024. Unfortunately, I don't have a monitor in the same resolution as the one that I used to have, so... Starting off with GTA 4, the notoriously bad PC port. I have fond memories of this game. I remember getting prepaid gift cards for Christmas, and that's how I actually bought this game. I didn't tell my parents, of course, because they didn't let me play games like this, or rather, they didn't want me to, but I went behind their back and I bought this game, and they never really noticed. But either way, 32 for the min, max 52, and an average of 39. It was playable. Like, it was alright. It looked good enough. And it was definitely playable. For sure, I enjoyed this as a kid, and I definitely knew that it was about 30 FPS even back then, but I was happy with that. It was more than playable for me. Up next we have Borderlands Game of the Year Edition. This is not the enhanced version, this is the original version. I'm getting a min of 26 here, which is weird. I think this is just a glitch, because I never had this like low frame rate ever. It only happens when I engage the benchmarking tool in Fraps, so probably just a glitch. Either way, a maximum of 64 and an average of 58, very, very playable. Just as I remember this. This always ran really, really well on this computer. The original Killing Floor was one of the first games I ever played on this computer, and I always remember it running really well, and the benchmark results here pretty much retell that story. Now, I did get a min of 41, which is a little weird, but again, this is KF Stronghold that I'm playing on. It's a very, very demanding map, maybe even unoptimized, I'm not too sure. It felt buttery smooth basically the entire time, so... Call of Duty World at War was another highly memorable game that I played on this computer, mainly because of the whole zombies thing. We were playing it on our iPod Touches, but I had a computer good enough that I could actually run the real zombies game. So here we can see a min of 61 and an average of 79 with a max of 94. All well within what I remember. There's not really much else to say about this game. It runs really well. Lastly, it's Left 4 Dead. Now, despite being fully updated, this game somehow still runs on Windows 7, so that's cool. This game, Gary's Mod, and Portal all had lasting impressions on me for some reason. When I think of this PC, I think of these three games mainly. But anyways, despite being fully up to date and having all its graphics settings maxed out, Left 4 Dead is no task for this computer, even with the AI stuff going on like the zombies and the like AI players. We're getting a minimum of 83, which is crazy, and a max of 194 and an average of 124. So yeah, it runs really, really well on here, just as I remember it. So as we can see, this PC was really, really good for the time. Even though it had kind of more lowly specs with just a Core i3 and 4 gigs of RAM, it still lasted quite a while, and it ran games really well despite being kind of more entry-level, sort of kind of mid-range hardware. Unfortunately, because this system is running Windows 7, I was not able to run all the games I wanted to run. They're simply no longer compatible. But hold on, because I have something crazy. I'll see you in the workshop. Typically, when it comes to gaming computers, you usually end up making something that you can upgrade down the road. I mean, think about it. If you had to spend tons of money every year replacing your entire gaming computer, it would get very expensive very quickly. So oftentimes, you want to upgrade individual things like maybe the hard drive, or the processor, the memory, the graphics card, things like that. And throughout this computer's existence in my life, it underwent several upgrades. Most important being this one. This is a Zotac GTX 650 Ti 2GB version. Yeah, look at that, 2GB. On Christmas of 2014, seemingly out of nowhere, my dad said, hey, have a video card for your computer. And even though I didn't ask for it, I was quite thankful for this, as it would help me out big time down the road. Thanks to this graphics card, I was able to run GTA 5 for PC when it launched, like the week it launched for PC. I was also able to play Saints Row and many other games because of this graphics card. Also, somewhere along the way in about 2015, coincidentally not long after GTA 5 released for PC, I did get an 8GB RAM upgrade for this computer. So since I happen to have the exact graphics card that my dad gave me, and I also have an 8GB RAM upgrade kit lying around, why don't we go and do the exact same upgrades that were done to this computer at some point throughout its life, and try even more games. However, I will confess to one thing. I was running Windows 8.1 at this time, and I remember it being miserably slow on a hard drive. So I'm kinda gonna break the rules a little bit here. Just a little bit. I hope you'll understand. I can't do that. I can't run Windows 8.1 on an HDD. I'm not doing that. We're not living through that again. Anyways, I will see you guys in just a few moments thanks to the magic of editing. Starting with Gary's Mod, this is actually the very first game I ever ran on this PC, even before the video card upgrade and stuff. Unfortunately, it doesn't run on Windows 7 anymore though, so I had to wait for a Windows 8.1 upgrade to try the game out. I just joined a random build server on GM Construct online, and our min is not great, but the average and the maximum are okay. But I can imagine, like, if you're doing Dark RP or something, this would be unplayable. And it kind of makes sense, because I do recall, shortly after the GMOD 13 update rolled out, my computer started to get really slow in GMOD, and it was really starting to struggle to run the game online. Team Fortress 2 was also a game that I played a lot of on this computer back when it was in its stock configuration. Once again, not a game that works on Windows 7 anymore, unfortunately, so we had to wait for Windows 8.1. Between now running in 64-bit mode and Valve dropping a performance update like literally yesterday as of the making of this video, our figures are actually not too bad. We have a minimum of 46, an average of 78, and a max of 187, and this is playing on like a regular old community server. Now I imagine if you join matchmaking and maybe you're in a bigger, sort of more crazy map, the numbers aren't going to be as good, but it's honestly really good. I expected a lot worse from this. Borderlands 2 was actually the very first game I ever played on this computer, like the moment I upgraded the graphics card. I remember Christmas Day buying Borderlands 2 on sale and playing it with my friend at the time on this new graphics card. Now unfortunately, it doesn't seem to run as well as I remember it running, with a min of 17 and an average of only 38. I'm not really sure what my settings were at the time, but either way, not so good. And we end things off with Black Mesa Source. This game has come such a long way since I first played it on this PC many years ago. It's now a full separate Steam release, but at the time that I played it, it was just a little source mod you could get on ModDB. Unfortunately though, the Steam release, despite being a lot prettier looking than the source mod version, just doesn't seem to run on this PC anymore, especially at 1080p. If you lower the resolution, I notice you actually can run it, but I had to really turn down the settings for 1080p, and even then, a minimum of 14, an average of 29, that's just scraping by playable. So there you have it. I'm super happy to have my first gaming PC back. Also super happy that I have the upgrades for it too. It really did surprise me with how poorly it ran some of the games though. Like, I don't know if I just ran them with different settings back in the day. That's entirely possible. Or maybe they've just like changed so much over the years. And while certain upgrades could definitely help improve the performance of these games, I think I'll stick to leaving my PC exactly how it was when it was first given to me. Because after all, my fondest memories of that system were right when I first got it and not too long after that.